Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Common Sense Guys channel. And yes, there is no music, and no, there is no picture. Reason why? I don't feel very well, and if you have a problem with that, shut the fuck up. So, hi, how's everybody doing today? We've got some good stories and everything else I'd like to go through. Monday should be interesting as well. We should be talking about Tommy Robinson's new cases, and also talking about the knife crime as well. I've already got Crumple Points going to be coming on with us on the Monday. I believe Jensen Quinn, if he's free, is going to come on as well. So stay tuned for that. That should be very, very interesting. Also as well on Saturday, so tomorrow, I'm going to be talking to an ANCAP as well. So did I replace my microphone with a tin can? Yes, I did. I'm using my Blue Yeti because apparently everything else didn't work. Don't blame me, blame everybody else. They were all telling me that it didn't go very well. So fuck you, Mr. Mad Dog, who's been away for how long? So I'm going to be talking to an ANCAP tomorrow, finding out what makes them tick and everything else like that. So should be interesting, might be interesting, I don't really know. But yeah, how is everybody doing for today?
I'm doing fine. Thank you very much for asking. It's, been quiet. Obviously down here it's been pissing itself as usual. So lovely, normal British weather.
Lovely. Is it snowing up where you are, Mr. Point, as it's supposed to be snowing up in ye old Scotland?
No, there's a special rule with Scottish snow, which is when they say it's going to snow, it's not. There's just fucking piss and rain here as well.
Oh, that's all right then. So it's no -4s and really crappy shit.
Oh, it's -4. It's just also rain.
Oh, that makes sense.
Welcome
it's
to
supposed
Scotland.
to change on the particular temperatures.
B wanted you to all know Happy International Women's Day.
Yeah, well, let's see how many people say Happy International Men's Day when it happens in a couple of days' time.
Yeah, sure. Straight away we'll be accused of patriarchy and things like that, as per usual.
Oh, don't worry. Now I've had a MGTOW on. Apparently, a couple of people that I've spoken to are now classing me as a MGTOW because I didn't give him a hard time, apparently.
Wow.
It is the guilt by association type of shit that happens nowadays for some strange fucking reason.
It's just I could see you closer to being an MRA, but MGTOW, no. I just no. Okay, just no.
Well, it's a good thing that I'm going to be doing a video on Sandman very, very soon, isn't it?
The fact that
I don't know if anybody knows who Sandman is. Sorry, carry on.
I was just saying the fact that you're engaged is a slight obstacle to being a MGTOW.
Yes, well, there is that. But I'm also going to be doing a video on Mr. Sandman as well very, very soon on his latest video that he put out, which is Men Don't Need Women, apparently. So that's going to be an interesting video.
Yeah, sure. Okay, well...
Ooh, I'm looking forward to being called an ANCAP from Saturday onwards, and that'll be interesting.
I had this. It wasn't directly at me, but this person was on Twitter was like, "Never reference memes in your comics," right? And they showed this picture of this horrific, shite Marvel Comics panel, but yeah. it was a total normie meme, and it might not have even been a meme. It might just have been a shit panel. And I was like, "You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. My whole comic is a meme, like the Peptis Challenge. It's if I had not been on the Ancapistan message boards and stuff, that comic wouldn't exist. And the name of it is a meme because it's called Peptis because it's a combination of Pepsi and Beepis, the meme. And it's like the whole thing is a fucking meme. There's even hidden Pepes all through the comic."
I do love people when they try to guilt by association with you. It's like, okay, well, I've talked to socialists before. I've talked to somebody that literally wants to give their kids up to the state before, who also doesn't understand how state lines and national borders work. But besides that, we'll get back to him at another point. I swear I will. I'm sorry that it's taking so long, but I will. But does that mean that I'm all for these things as well? Obviously not. Of course I'm not. I just love the idea that because you talk to somebody, that means that you then support that person's ideas and ideology. By the way, just seen Sharati as well. Happy birthday to Sharati's brother as well. I don't think that he's going to be watching for obvious reasons, but at the same time, pass on my wishes to your brother as well, Sharati. Happy birthday from me, and I'm sure the panel as well.
Of course.
Oh yeah.
What? Yeah.
So anything, has anybody got anything else that they would like to add, or shall I pretend that we actually want to get on and do these stories?
I'm ready to carry on with the stories, especially if you're starting with the Stan Lee one, because I really can't wait for Crumple Point's opinion on that.
I think ours is going to be very, very similar, considering that I was very, very annoyed and I was the one who picked the story out. So I think we're going to be very similar. So yeah, that's fine. I'll get on with the stories then. Not unless Mr. Point has anything to point out. Yes, I used a pun.
No, let's get this thing done.
Yay! So, presenting to everybody, this isn't. I just got rid of it because I'm a dick. Because you have to click out and click on and everything else like that, and it goes well. Just life. Just roll with it. It'll be fine. You'll understand what's going on. Honest. So, the most important thing about this is to realise that Stanley has unfortunately passed away. And on the 6th of March, his Twitter account, which was his Twitter account and is his Twitter account, decided to, somehow miraculously, through the zombified Stan Lee, to tweet something about Marvel. I have no idea why they would want to be falsifying tweets by Stan Lee to say that he would support something like this, but it seems to be in the world in which we are. I'm going to save my judgment for after Mr. Crumple Quinn has gone first, and then Simpson Quinn, and then I'll have a little bit of Terran as well if there's anything left.
Well, basically, they're a bunch of dishonest ideological arse cunts, and I hope they all have a next shite that's a pineapple. I'm just like, I can't believe that there is no low these people won't stoop to. Firstly, they've been falsifying sales, and they've been putting comic stores out of business by over shipping to them and forcing them to use the dodgy sales practices that they're engaging in while putting out a load of fucking absolute garbage. And then they basically did that hostage video with Stan Lee where they fed him a load of bullshit about, harassment, and made him say this message, which was actually in line with all the stuff that people like me say. So Stan Lee was, saying what we say in this video that they basically coerced him into doing. There was the elderly abuse thing that none of them did anything about. They've destroyed his company. They're trying to destroy his legacy. They're raping all his IPs. And now they're using his Twitter account, even though he's dead, trying to endorse this latest pile of dog shit that they've come up with, which further treads on his legacy as a legendary comic creator.
Well, the thing, sorry, I said Simpson Quinn was going to go second, so Simpson Quinn, please carry on.
No worries, mate. And Crumple Point, dude, don't hold back. I can feel you holding back. You need to say how you really feel. And yes, I completely agree with you. This is absolutely ridiculous and disgusting what they're doing. I am absolutely appalled with them. And to be honest, I really, really hope some form of karma comes up to them and kicks them square in wherever happens to be their most painful place. All yours, CSG.
Thank you very much. Where to start with? Apart from obviously what Mr. Point has actually pointed out, the fact that Disney, when buying Marvel, basically was forcing Stan Lee and all of his ideas to do stuff that Stan Lee never would have wanted the actual ideas to go down in the first place. The actual fact of them forcing the idea of comic books down people's stores and everything else like that. The fact that basically they were trying to reshape the whole comic book industry to basically go off for a different demographic to the one that already was massively involved in the actual franchise. Instead of going for the white men or the men or whatever, or boys or whatever that they already had, with a small demographic of women as well, we're trying to be more inclusive and falsifying Stan Lee's ideas and Stan Lee's own points of view, which weren't that way inclined, to the point of where he also used to come out and actually cancel the fact of his subscriptions to the actual comic. When he was going to go through, I believe, Iron Man, when he was going through the fact of how bad Tony Stark was going to be into alcoholism and everything else like that, and talking about the idea of suicide and things like that, actually went against the comic book regulators to be able to produce that comic book because it was a story that he believed in and wanted to produce. Now, obviously, later on in life, he didn't have that fight left in him because he was an old man. And the thing is, they've gone from one level to beating an old man figuratively, maybe literally, but definitely figuratively, to be able to produce rhetoric that he didn't necessarily believe in, to now actually completely and utterly treading all over his grave, to be able to produce a narrative that is a case of, oh, Stan Lee would have been feminist, Stan Lee would have supported this. Stan Lee would never have forced anybody to believe in anything that they didn't fucking believe in for a start. But the thing that everybody's so annoyed about isn't the case that he's maybe would have supported this or not. That's not what everybody's annoyed at. It's about that you've taken over a dead person, somebody who died, personal Twitter account, to be able to push a narrative, to be able to say that this is something that he would do, this is something that he wants, and everything else like that. And you've literally rolled over his legacy, rolled over his death, to be able to play up to try and push sales. You are literally everything that a socialist would say about corporatism. That the fact is that you do not give a shit about any form of morals. And I would like to point out that the morals that this corporation is pushing is from a socialist ideology, not necessarily a capitalist one. But those are my interpretations. Me personally, I think this is an absolute travesty that any company or any person behind Stan Lee's Twitter account and Twitter themselves should ever have let this happen and should ever let this continue. Because all it is using somebody's death to benefit them. That's it. That's all it's done. This has nothing to do with Stan Lee, nothing to do with his legacy. All it is a case of them literally pissing over it, in my opinion.
Completely agree.
What about you, Mr. Point? I know you've got more to say.
It's just you're right. And see if they could wax him up, Madame Tussauds style, stick him on a pole and trot him out that way. They would do it. There's honestly, they don't give a shit about him. They would give a shit about their fans. All they care about is jobs for the boys, or in mainly the case, girls. And it's just like you read. They keep parading about this old article that Stan wrote called Stan's Soapbox. And it's like where he's going on about like tolerance and integrity and shit like that. And it's just like they're parading it around as if it's talking about them. And it always makes us like rage and laugh in equal measure, which is kind of my life, to be honest. But it's like.
But correct me if I'm wrong.
The thing is.
But wasn't that more about the aspect of actually treating everybody equally? And it was mostly putting people on about anti-Semitism that was going on in that time as well. And trying to create equal opportunity for the rich and the poor back in this time. It wasn't actually going over the fact of any SJW type of stuff over.
Well, it's basically just like the golden rule, like do unto others and treat everybody the same, and we're all kind of brothers and sisters and all that kind of thing. And it was like, nothing anybody with an ounce of sense would actually disagree with. But the thing is, if you look at what they do, they obviously don't agree with a fucking word of it because they're sexist, racist, race-baiting bigots who care only about advancing their own careers. And that is independent of making money, by the way, because they obviously don't care about the money. It's all about the message. And it's like, it's gotten to the stage where Disney are genuinely considering shutting down Marvel as an entity and just selling off the IPs. And it's like, that's what they've done to his legacy, and now they're tweeting out as him.
I'm just going through the whole, well, not the whole of it, because I don't see the point of going through the whole of it. Just little aspects of the Twitter people that have responded.
Sorry, I just wanted to mention, I didn't know about this. I forgot about the function on Twitter where you can report something as impersonating someone else. So I've just reported that tweet as somebody's impersonating this person, because obviously Stan Lee can't be tweeting that. So fuck it.
Well, I completely agree. Everybody's basically saying exactly the same thing. Basically saying under Jensen Quinn's language that he's now been necromanced alive to be able to shield for the Disney Corporation. And it's everything that you quite rightly just said. It's fine if you were going to go off of the case of trying to suggest that remembering his life and doing different memories, if you had a form of a Twitter manager, if you understand what I mean, fine, do little bits of his memories and his life and whatnot. I wouldn't say that's a bad thing. But when it comes to the point of tweeting out new movies and things like that to try and help people go to this new film because they can see that let's say that the sales are not necessarily going to go through the roof, or is it going to be a regular Marvel movie? Though, to be fair, most of the movies haven't really done that well, apart from the Avengers and the Thor movies, as far as I'm aware. But I just don't understand why Disney would have thought, or whoever runs Stan Lee's account at this point in time would have actually thought that this would have been a good idea. I just can't understand why people would have thought that this would have been a good idea. Literally going after people that are dead, have died, and trying to say, oh, he would have done it, so you should do it too. No, why don't you fuck off and stop using people to fucking chill your ideology?
Completely agree. In all fairness, there is one thing I'm actually looking forward to when it comes to the whole Ms. Marvel and all that sort of rubbish. How are they going to deal with the fact that Rogue, spoilers everybody, kills Ms. Marvel? You know, what are they going to do about that?
Oh, she doesn't necessarily kill her, as far as I'm aware, especially from the 90s cartoons, which obviously is not comics. She does keep her very, very sedated and everything else like that, to the point that she's in a coma. As far as I'm aware, Rogue still goes to visit her because of her guilt and things like that. So I'm not sure that she's completely dead, the original Captain Marvel, but yes, you are correct that all of Rogue's powers from the comic books and the 90s TV show comes from the fact that she basically almost killed Captain Marvel by throwing her off of a bridge after completely sucking her like a succubus.
I wonder if that's why they cast Brie Larson as being a complete plank of wood and having all the expression of a teaspoon. They went, oh well, this is the one that was prior to this point in a coma, so she's only barely alive at this point, so she can't display human emotion.
Yeah. There's a possibility on that one. Yeah, there's a possibility on that one. I just showed how geeky I was there, didn't I? I did.
I mean, it's just people are annoyed at it because they're treating him like an asset of the company. There's and you can see on the opposite side with DC, they've had some iconic creators over the years, and they do like big memorial things. They go crazy with the covers and memorials. They have articles regularly about, not even on anniversaries and stuff. They'll just do an article and keeping these guys' legacies alive. Then you hop over to Marvel, which has got more reason than anybody to focus on one figure in particular, and they just use him like he's some kind of like puppet, like he's some kind of mascot. And it's like, no, he's a human being, and it's like he's smarter than any of them ever were, and he's also like so good-willed and witty and knows these characters inside out. And they just are such the opposite of him that they come out and they're cynical, ideological cowards who have absolutely no creative merit whatsoever, and they're just using him as a human shield so that they can, use him to block the rain of fire that angry fans are bringing down on them constantly.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the funny thing is that when you compare DC to Marvel, now you could argue that the comics are not necessarily as good as the other comics, or they're darker or whatever. You can say that there's definitely differences, and you can probably argue what one's bigger or better in the idea of comic books. When it comes to the movie franchise, apart from the Avengers, you'd have to say that DC kind of knocks off most of Marvel. Actually, no. I'm wrong on that one. I am wrong on that one. I just have a bit of a bias towards the Justice League movie. But then again, that was a shit movie anyway. Anyway, never mind. I'm not that geeky. I don't know anything about this stuff.
You mean you're not a weeb? Well, and there was me thinking you was. How about that?
Well, I only weeb on the weekends.
Possibly
Also,
too much.
also known as weebends.
Yes, I'm a weebend. It's something similar to a bell end, but it's got a weeb on the beginning.
The difference between a bell end and a weebend is that you stick a weebend into a waifu body pillow.
Lucky enough, I don't need that anymore. But I don't need a waifu pillow anymore. I just have a waifu. They're doing well on that front.
Well, it could be argued that you might be making a mistake there. At least waifu pillow you can keep quiet, but I'm not stupid enough to say that. Oops, I said that on air. Oh dear.
And I'm not stupid enough to continue down this conversation. So, moving on to the next story.
Oh, just quickly before we move on.
Sure.
Fuck you, Marvel.
To be fair, I would say more fuck you, Disney, because let's be honest, Disney are the ones that are up on high, that are the ones that are now dictating to Marvel what they should and shouldn't do. Regardless how bad Marvel were fucking up when Stanley was even alive, when he wasn't fully in charge anymore. But I'd still say it's more Disney's fault than Marvel's, because at least people that worked at Marvel had an idea of how to do things, and one of them would have been, don't take the Lord's name in vain. And I say that as a Stanley.
It's a long time. Like way before the Disney merger.
Yeah.
So
I'm not saying that Marvel didn't fuck around, but the thing is that they didn't really. Oh, I suppose they did. Yeah.
don't get me wrong. I'll still give the giant mouse a kick in the ribs happily, but
To be fair, it's that many. She'll get it. After all, I do like a little bit of weaving. Sorry,
I think that's enough for one night. I'll see you guys.
All right, then I'll give you Petty Boo, or would you like Jessica Rabbit?
No, I want like one of those fleshy women that you get, like I've got at home.
Oh well, we can give you one of those sex robots. They've apparently got flesh on now.
To be honest, just take the sex robot and put it at the head of Marvel. It'd do a better fucking job.
Not difficult.
Right, second call for people in adult entertainment has British cycling affiliation revoked. This is kind of, for me, is an interesting story. Very interesting for me, anyway, because one, it's to do with charity, but there's also an element of following the laws, but the law seems really stupid.
So what do they do here? They put a dildo on the saddle and cycle that way?
No. It's just because they have... It's literally just because they have the name. Sorry, go on, Johnson.
All I was going to say is you'd think they would, wouldn't you? But no, it's not even that, unreasonable what these people have done. So please carry on. Let you explain it before I say my point.
No, you can say your point. I'm going to ruin it anyway.
Okay.
The only reason why that they've kicked them out is because that, one, they have the name of the Pawn Peddler Cycling Club, and second of all, because they're sponsored by Television X.
I think it's mainly because they're probably not on enough performance-enhancing drugs, to be honest.
To be fair, can everybody see my mouse?
Yeah.
Can we do?
Yep.
Can we see my mouse?
Yep.
Okay. What the fuck is she wearing?
Good question.
That doesn't look very comfortable.
Well, all I can say is if you're standing next to her and you hear her buzzing, we know exactly what she's wearing.
Well, I'm wondering why she's got the biggest smile on the team. Anyway, enough of that. But yes, moving down. Let's actually get on with the story and the reason why it's important. So, a cycling club made up of adult entertainment stars who raise money for charity has had its British cycling affiliation revoked. We will get into the reason why that's important very soon. But basically, think of it from a YouTube point of view of cancelling all your ad revenue and any sponsors that you did have that sponsored your videos revoked. So literally, you have no money coming in whatsoever to help you cycle. So the cycling governing body decided to take the action against the PPCC after being made aware. I wonder what goody goody two shoes had decided that they were going to pull up Television Act and the Porn Peddlers Cycling Group or Club. I wonder why that come up. So the club, which is sponsored by Television X, was told that affiliated sponsors must not damage the image of the organisation. Now, regardless of what people may have as their own personal ideas of what the porn industry is, or Television X in itself, or whatever, I don't see how it's damaging the reputation if you have an affiliation with a porn industry, especially when feminists themselves say that it's okay to be a sex worker. In the next breath would say that it's not a good idea to be affiliated with somewhere like Television X that apparently exploits women for their femininity.
Yeah, and also let's not forget that out of the two groups, the standard cyclists have probably got more horse testosterone in them than the porn stars do.
Yes, the porn stars would actually have to get tested a hell of a lot fucking more than the regular cyclists. Believe it or not, in the porn industry, it's quite regulated. It's weird. A lot of people don't think that it is. Don't get me wrong, not all porn is very regulated, but most of it, if you're working for decent companies, is actually really highly regulated. Every single form of position and everything else of that is signed into a contract. Everything is put into place to make sure that both the porn actress and actor are protected. Everything's agreed upon, everything's signed upon, and everything else like that. It's a very, very protected industry now. And I don't think people really realise that. They still think that it's the same thing as people getting thrown around and told what they can and cannot do. I'm not saying that that doesn't happen. I'm not saying that doesn't happen. I'm sure it does still. But not in the actual proper, say, for instance, Playboy, that do their own channels and whatnot. I wouldn't suppose that that would be something that Playboy would do for the new up-and-coming girls. It would be the lower end people.
And B has just popped back at the perfect time for the porn section. What a surprise.
Yeah, she knows my timing too well. Okay, I suppose that should mean that I should stop having bath pizzas with her. Anyway, the PPCC raises funds for h.i.v charity, the Terence Higgins Trust. So again, a very important charity that they run for. It's obviously a charity that sticks with their heart because it's in most cases, a sexually transmitted disease. In most cases, not all. And it's obviously something that's going to affect either somebody they know, has done, hasn't done, but it's something that they would want to be cycling for and raising money for. In actual fact, this is probably one of the best things that you could think of people actually giving back to their community and making sure people that have, in some cases, illness that is going to kill them or has a very high chance, in some cases, not all cases. And the cycling people have just gone, nah, because you're related to porn and things like that, we don't want you in a group and you're not getting any funding anymore. So guess what? Fuck off. That's literally what this just happened. So, in a statement posted to its Twitter page, the PPCC said, cycling is for everyone, except people like us. It added, we're just a cycling club riding for fun and raising money for what I've just said before, the trust group.
Also, it's like, what did the cycling commission think they're doing? Do they think they're actually just going to cycle about naked with a dildo up their arse, like try to shag from bike to bike? Like, what do they like? It's a cycling club attached to a group of people that do this for a living. It's not like an actual production.
Exactly. They're not going to go around the corner into the Tour de France or the Tour de Yorkshire and go, right, see that bush, meet you there in 5 minutes. It's not happening. They're doing it for specific reasons. They're doing it for fun. They're doing it to compete. They're doing it to make sure that they can raise money for people that can't do it for themselves due to illness and whatnot. They're trying to make sure that they can cure something. If this is something to do with cancer, would they stop it? Because I'm not trying to conflate the two and say that HIV is worse than cancer or vice versa. It's sheerly a comparison. If this was something that everybody knew, obviously thinks that cancer is bad, and it is. But isn't HIV somewhere in the same category? Surely?
Well, I don't think so, common sense guy. I mean, it only just about killed the whole planet at one point in human history, so I think it's pretty, we can just forget about that one.
Yeah, you're right, I'm being bigoted.
Like, I mean, people only literally thought the world was going to come to an end for about 10 years, so it's probably not that serious.
Wait, was that climate change, or are we still talking about HIV?
No, that's HIV. You're thinking of climate change, and that's 12 years. Well, it's 11 now.
Okay.
She said 12 years about a month ago, so I'm assuming the clock started from then.
Oh, maybe, you never know. Yeah, no, you're completely and utterly right. It's funny to me on that aspect that people are still trying to censor people from doing stuff on their background. The day and age when everybody is saying that you shouldn't be treated by what you do and what you can do and what not, but actually what actions you take, not by what associations you have, not by what you do as a day job. I really do find this very bigoted and very closed-minded. Oh, they do porn or they have affiliation to porn. That's bad. That's prunish. Let's make sure that we don't let anybody know what's going on. We can't have that. It's going to bring us in distribution. But really? Why? What? Because you're letting Television X advertise on somebody's sweater? Because they're raising money for HIV? That makes sense.
It's so fucking funny as well, because I mean, like, we, quite rightly as well, let soldiers do fundraisers for things in the knowledge that those soldiers may well have shot somebody in the face or something like that, which is quite extreme behaviour. Now,
I don't know. It's not extreme behaviour. It's not as extreme as driving around with a Television X sticker on your back.
well, that's what I mean. It's just like, oh, you shag for a living. We just can't have that sort of thing. It's just like, meanwhile, the other guy cycling alongside them may have actually had to kill somebody for his job. Like,
Yeah.
it's like you can't just discriminate on just random behaviors you don't like. And it's like there's other things as well, because it's like you get people who are like reformed criminals, right? So they probably aren't murders, but they probably did burgling or something like that, and they're still allowed to cycle. Like, where do you draw the line? What about he used to run an investment fund that stole everybody's pensions, but it's like he didn't personally have anything to do with it, and we like him. It's like, wait, his profession still did awful things. Do we ban him now too? Like, what load of shit.
See, what you're saying is that we would allow a banker to be able to cycle, but we won't allow a wanker. Yeah, couldn't help myself.
You go there with that joke, dude.
Man. I had to.
That's the thing, though, that, a porn star can only do one at a time, whereas a politician and a banker can fuck a whole country up the arse in one go.
Yeah, true.
If a porn star can only do one at a time, you've not been watching the same sort of porn I've been watching, dude.
Yeah, we're not all six-sided.
Okay.
So members of the club argued they were trying to help people through their fundraising and were doing legal work. Wait, were they not doing legal? Anyway, in its decision notice, British Cycling said, "We have been made aware the club name stands for Porn Peddlers Cycling Club. Now, we can't have that, as it's a really clever play on words, considering most of them come from the porn industry and trying to cycle to raise money. We can't have that level of sarcasm and happiness in the world, can we now? Because it has porn in it." Sorry, I was being a wanker.
Joining the porn society. Now we understand. Okay.
Yeah. So, as such, we would be unable to accept your affiliation at this time, simply because of the name, mind you, by this point. simply by the name. Affiliation with the British Cycling offers clubs a range of benefits, which for anybody that's interested, this is what it means, including public liability insurance, which is a shit ton of money, by the way, entry into national and regional rankings, which also adds extra money for the higher up rankings that you get, as in prize money. And obviously advertising for your club, and obviously advertising for the work that you're doing. Say, for instance, raising money for a fucking charity. I use that word literally, fucking charity. Yes, I couldn't help myself again, yes. So, world governing body, Union Cycle, whatever, International, UCI, will state that without prejudice of the applicable law, no brand of tobacco, spirits, pornographic bits, this product. I don't understand why they abbreviated that, considering it's supposed to be on Sky News. No, this product is what you really wanted to say, isn't it? So why the fuck didn't you write that? Or any other products that might damage the image of the UCI or the sport of cycling in general should be associated directly or indirectly with a license holder, a UCI team, or a national or international cycling competition. So again, just because that you have porn peddlers as your name, as well as having a affiliation with Television X as a brand or a sponsor, you're no longer allowed to cycle to be able to have any sort of funding or help with that, because it brings the cycling competition into disrepute. I mean, Lance Armstrong didn't do that by himself, did he?
Do you know what? What they should actually do is go, screw you to the UCI and get themselves sponsored by Pornhub. Simple as that. I mean, you know, UCI can be as pissy as they like. Get themselves sponsored by Pornhub and some of those places, and they're going to make, let's be blunt, a damn sight more money than a bunch of pedal bikers are ever going to make.
Hang on, I just realised that I know you were saying it as a joke, that he supports this decision. I'm really not surprised, you totalitarian Nazi. Yeah, no, I completely agree with everybody on the panel. I believe that it doesn't matter what your affiliations outside of that club are. Obviously, if you're a criminal and you've got bloody people that you've murdered or raped or whatever, then yeah, okay, you should be discriminated against on that point. Yeah, I'm just not even going to entertain you guys at this minute in time, mate. Just go back to your Irish corner. Sorry, Northern Irish corner. The Northern Irish corner.
See, I'm just thinking, you know what they would be better doing, now that you mentioned Pornhub, or even just on Television X. I reckon, see, if they were to put up a series of videos of them doing, like, a cycling marathon or something, people would actually give it views or donate, like, after this has happened. Because as people have this weird thing of, obviously porn stars are basically just meat. That's kind of like how people look at them, but essentially, like, people also don't like to see them mistreated either. So it's like, I reckon if they were to actually go, all right, fuck your cycling club, then we're just going to do our own, you know, vlog and complete a course and raise money out that way, I reckon they'd probably make more money.
I think there's a possibility in that side of things. I mean, Voice of One obviously makes a little bit of a point in chat, though I don't think his stats are completely right, and it depends on where you're actually taking the stat from. But I suppose he has a point. Yes, we have one of the highest rates of spreading HIV, but we want to raise money for the problem we're helping to cause.
Yeah, well, feminists are allowed to raise money for cancer. Ooh.
True. But on a more serious note, you also have fossil fuel energy companies that are funding solar and renewable energy companies. Is that not masochism, or is that a case of trying to change their ways to be able to make sure that people are more aware of what goes on, to actually help the problem in which they help create? Does that mean that people that are not allowed to actually rectify or redeem themselves in the actions that they've chosen or have known, or the profession that they've gone into? Does that mean that there's no redemption for anybody because of what they've done or what people have perceived them to do? Or is it a case of I don't like what you're doing because I have a bad connotation of what it is, so fuck you. I suppose it's probably that one.
No,
Anyway.
you're right. You're right, mate, to be fair. You know, to be honest, if these people really want to raise one wonderfully big middle finger to the UCI, as much as I might partially have been joking about the whole thing of getting them sponsored by Pornhub, can you imagine how highly entertaining it would be for them to actually be riding around? Because let's be honest, Britain has got some absolutely fascinating names of towns.
I see where you're going with this.
True. It's true.
Yeah. Exactly. You understand where I'm going with. Just imagine them doing like a sponsored marathon around some of the more fascinating names that we have in our wonderful country. That would be one, awesome advertising for the areas they're doing it in. Two, absolutely hilarious, shoving their middle finger up to the UCI. And three, bringing awareness about what they're doing and the way they're being treated. I genuinely think it'd be a good idea.
I think it'd be a good idea as well. I do think it's a good idea. I think that anybody that wants to bring awareness to what it is. Look, I say this as a hypothetical. If a Nazi was bringing awareness to what they had done in 1945, I would praise them for bringing awareness to it. It does not mean I like the cunt for doing it, and it does not mean that I like him for doing whatever he may have done in the past. But if you're bringing awareness to it, I can support your action without supporting you. And I think we do not disassociate the action to the people anymore. And I think that's a bad way of looking at life. Everybody can be good, everybody can be bad. Let's take the good out of everybody and amplify that, rather than trying to dictate, well, your actions say that you're this or that, because my perception thinks of it that way. Let's actually listen to what the people actually are trying to do and trying to say, rather than going, yeah, I don't like your profession. I don't like your history or what I think your history is. So, fuck you. I don't like things like that. But let's actually judge people on the actions in which they partake, rather than the actions we think they partake in. I guess that's my opinion on that one anyway. So as we move from one story to the next story, which is kind of interlinked, at least I think it's interlinked, there may, not 100% sure, obviously, most like most people, but there may actually be a cure for HIV. I say cure as in there may be a form of stem cell transplant, but it seems to be working. So, London man clear of HIV after stem cell transplant. Yeah, you heard that correct. Man in Britain is the treatment's second worldwide success after a US man known as the Berlin patient 12 years ago. So, a man in London has become the second person to be clear of HIV after a stem cell transplant, doctors have said. Until now, Timothy Ray Brown from the US was the only person thought to have been cured of HIV after undergoing a transplant in Berlin 12 years ago. Yet it has taken 12 years to perfect this, apparently. The unidentified man in the UK, who is being called the London patient, received bone marrow stem cells from a donor with a rare genetic mutation that resists HIV infection, or the HIV infection should be the correct grammatical formation there. But, what can I say? I'm dyslexic.
Oh, that's the same genetic sequence that they tried to put in those genetically altered super babies as well. They think that mutation actually causes a load of other weird stuff like above average IQ and a generally better immune system and stuff like that. It's weird. It's all the same part of the genome, so it's not just this. This is the only thing it does. It does a bunch of different shit. But also, the London patient sounds like a Sherlock Holmes story.
Yeah.
To be fair, it was definitely a Dr. Watson adaptation. Yeah. So almost 3 years on, and more than 18 months after coming off I can't say that word because I'm an idiot.
Antiretroviral.
There we go. Drugs. Highly sensitive tests show no signs of the man's previous HIV infection. This is from the actual doctor. Sorry, a professor and HIV biologist. Quotation or quote. There is no virus there that we can measure. We can't detect anything. Said, fuck that name. A professor.
Ravindra Gupta.
Yeah?
Ravindra Gupta.
That'll do. HIV biologist who treated the man that Reuters reports, because it would be Reuters that reports it, said that despite the patient appearing functionally cured, it is too early to say he's cured. The London patient was diagnosed with HIV in 2003 and did not start to take drugs to control the infection until 2012. He developed lymphoma, in later 2012 and agreed to a stem cell transplant to treat the cancer in 2016. His doctors believed that with the right kind of donor, the London patient could find an HIV cure, not a HIV, anyway, grammar, as well as cancer treatment. So doctors found a donor with a gene mutation that confers natural resistance to HIV. Around 1% of people descended from Northern Europeans have inherited the mutation from both parents and are immune to most HIV. That's fucking interesting in itself. Anybody that does not believe in evolution, hey. Sorry, had to do it. The donor that had this double copy of the mutation, where Dr. Gupta described an improbable event. You went out and searched for it. How can it be improbable if you went out and searched for it and said that this would happen and then it happened? Surely that's a theory that's been proven, right? A hypothesis has turned into a theory.
You'd think that.
Something. Am I missing something on that?
No. I totally. You would
I think
think
with medical shit like that, you need to have multiple successful cases before you can say it. So they would need like dozens more of it working in people before it's a confirmed thing. Because as we know, you get genetic freaks, and medical science has to factor that in.
Yeah, no, I can still see that, but even describing it as an improbable event still kind of implies that there was no thought process behind it. And I don't know, the connotations of the words probably mean more to me than what she's trying to describe, and maybe I'm misinterpreting it.
Well, it's also a newspaper, so they know fuck all.
Well, you say it's a newspaper, it's Sky.
So it's a not even newspaper.
No, by that I mean it's just a paper. Okay. That's why this has not been observed more frequently, he added. And I called you a she, I'm so sorry. The transplant changed the man's immune system, giving him the donor's mutation and HIV resistance. Does that mean that we're looking into the eyes of Stan Lee's creations of mutations that will save the world? Is this person truly a mutant? We'll get some more next week on the Bat Channel. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. He then voluntarily stopped taking HIV drugs to see if the virus would come back. This is what I think is the most interesting. HIV patients rely on lifelong daily medication to suppress the virus, and when the drugs are stopped, the virus usually comes back within 2 to 3 weeks. However, the virus did not return in the London patient's case, or patient X, or is it weapon X? No, sorry, I need to stop. In case there is still no trace of the virus after 18 months of the drugs. Stem cell transplants are known to be hard on the body, starting with radiation and chemotherapy, or damage the existing immune system and make room for a new one. The failure rate of such transplants is high, but by God, if it works, then you're immune to HIV, apparently. So, yay. Dr. Jero Hutter, the German doctor who treated the first cured patient, Mr. Brown, who is still free of the virus, described the latest case as great news and one piece in the HIV cure puzzle. I completely and utterly agree with that assessment, to be fair. The reason why I agree with that assessment is because if you could sequence the DNA to be able to, I don't know, synthetically change the DNA in the actual genome itself, or change the stem cells as you have done to be able to do it without needing a donor, then you've basically been able to cure that virus. And I'm not trying to say that that's any time soon. I imagine that's at least 20 years, 30 years down the line to be able to do anything like that. But it's the exciting point of it being able to happen. And I think that's the most exciting part, at least for me. But the fact is that you can sequence the DNA to be able to change this, to be able to help people that have the immunity to the actual virus. And I think that's an amazing thing for breakthrough in science, medically or in general. So I have been talking for a while. What do you guys think?
Well,
go ahead, Jensen.
okay. Let's get it. Let's get simple here. At one point, HIV was the scourge of the planet, and everyone is going to die. Now we're getting closer and closer to a point where we have a cure. This is a good thing. I just want that absolutely clear. This is good. I am glad that this shit has finally happened. It's about bloody time. So, it's a nice crossover, the last story, because, they're out there trying to raise money to cure HIV. And now we're getting a story pointing out how we're getting even closer to curing said HIV. At what point people with any vague attempt at calling themselves intelligent say that this is a bad thing?
The voice of one, by the looks of it. His actual quotation for what he said was, "We see this type, obviously, because typo, of article for cancer nearly every year for the last 20 years, and still no cure." No, we haven't seen that at all for cancer. We've seen treatments. We haven't seen something that's actually a cure for it. Difference from a treatment to a cure. Completely different. And as he said before, yeah, let's be over the moon for a cure that still won't be here for another enter number here, years. But hey, we can cure somebody every 12 years until then. I mean, it's in a nice way, and I know that you're doing it more for a case of comedic effect or trying to play the angry man in the corner, so to speak. If that's really your opinion, I mean it in a nice way. Fuck me, you don't really have much of an outlook on life if that's the things that you want to moan about. Surely it should be a case of, even if it is once every 12 years, eventually it would be a case that we would get there. We'd be able to decide and be able to get there to be able to cure it completely. Surely. But then again, I could be wrong. Maybe it is a bad thing that we can only do it once every 12 years. What does anybody else think?
Well, if one of you gentlemen cares to hand me my tinfoil bonnet.
Here you go, sir. I'm just passing it.
There you go. Excellent. Right, there we are. Now, I think that they have had this shit for years, that they can already cure it and that it works, but that us, the general plebeic, have not heard about it and will not hear about it for a long time, if not ever. However, I do still think it's quite an amazing feat of science, but I have acceptable knowledge of epigenetics, and they've been able to do things like this since like 2000-ish. But what happens is the world governments and big biotech firms keep buying up or patenting the research, which means you can be thrown in prison for doing essentially an experiment using natural raw materials that can be found in living animals. It is also, you are correct in saying about how this is completely possible without any need for a human donor. Like they can take any biological material from a human being and apply a sequence of proteins to it, which makes it revert back to a stem cell, and then reprogram it from there. And they can do this relatively quickly, and they can cure things like diabetes, for instance, in one treatment that costs around about £2,500. And that research was done in, I think, about 2003 or something like that, and that was buried. And I think that if they get anywhere with this, the same thing will happen. However, humanity has done amazing things before, so like that's what people will try and do, but it doesn't necessarily mean they'll be successful. Sometimes, if you look at the way things like 3D printing and stuff have gone, they tried to kill that and they didn't manage it. So I remain cynical of these people's intentions, but optimistic about human capacities.
Sure, I mean, I can understand the idea of the tinfoil hat wearing stuff. I can understand that. But it's in the news. It's not something that, if you believe in the conspiracy theory or not, it's in the news. People are understanding it. If there is such a thing where they are hiding it, which there may not be, I don't know, I haven't looked into it, and I'm not going to. But if there is a case of them hiding it, and now it's coming out into the news, surely it's a case of more and more people will understand that this is a possibility, and they won't be able to hide it. So even if they are trying to, it's coming to the forefront. Maybe they're ready to be able to push it out from the government's aspect of it.
Yeah, that's why I'm kind of balanced on it, because we're hearing about it, and that's good. But at the same time, I remember there was seeing around, let's say 2008, they had this material that it's a liquid, it's a jelly with tiny little crystals in it, right? And one jar of this stuff, it can store data in a crystalline shape. So if you think of the way we store data in a flash drive, for instance, that would be a straight line. This thing can store it not in one dimension, but 3 dimensions. And so this gel, they were saying that about 7 jars of it could hold the entire NSA database, like 7 jam jars of it. And it was a massive breakthrough. And then it was bought by the NSA and nobody ever heard of it again. And even going back to this day, until relatively recently, it was almost impossible to find the initial research on it. And they keep saying, oh, nothing was ever done with it, and they never had any breakthroughs. But we know that they're leaping forward with things like quantum computers and AI. So it's like, I fully believe that this stuff works and we're just not getting a hold of it. Same thing happened with graphene as well. Remember how well that was coming along, and they were going to have phones you could roll up, and windscreens that had heads-up displays on them and everything like that. And then the people that were making graphene just stopped making public statements, and people were buying the rights to the research constantly. Yeah. So this does happen, but you can only keep people down for so long.
Exactly. I mean, you talk about the phones and aspects like that. You look at the new Samsung phone that's coming out this moment in time. It's now turning into a foldy phone. I mean, yeah, maybe there is cases and maybe there is instances of the government or businesses themselves just stopping people from being able to produce what's coming out. But I think we can all agree the fact that it's come out in the news, I think it's a step forward, and I think the research in itself is going to step forward as well. And with the more research that we do on aspects of this, the more chance, as in using DNA and stem cells and changing forms of DNA, not the whole thing, obviously, but preparing the DNA structure that has now got the virus or now got a condition or now has got a disease or whatever, to be able to change and repair it is instrumental to be able to defeat diseases, as we said before, like cancer, which is literally cells that have overgrown and have started attacking the body, so to speak, as well as forms of aging. There's so much possibility that could happen with that aspect of DNA research. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm for all of it, but it's an exciting time where it's actually being reported in a national news outlet. And I think that's what we have to take away from it, that it's actually coming a good point and it's actually doing really well. Does anybody have anything else to add to the story before we go on to the anti-Semitic Hollywood members?
No, I'm good with this one. I think I said all I need to on it. It's a good thing that it's happening. It's about bloody time. And, people are going to have issues because of the whole, it's stem cells, therefore it must be babies. Not necessarily.
Well, yeah, I would also like to say that if in the future, if any of you are listening, genetically altered super babies, know that I am jealous of you, and you're very lucky.
I would definitely like your immune system and possibly intelligence that comes with it. Because I need it. Intelligence more than anything else. Oh, now let's move on to what I would consider probably the biggest story of the day, which is why I tried to get through to this one as quickly as possible, which is Labour. So Labour could be guilty of unlawful discrimination over anti-Semitism. Equality Watchdog says it could take enforcement action as Labour rejects any suggestion the party has acted unlawfully. So the Equality Watchdog says it could take enforcement action as Labour rejects any sort of form of unlawful action on their part. And smug wanker. You know that I love these people. So Labour may have unlawfully discriminated against people over anti-Semitism claims, Equality Watchdog has said. The Equality and Human Rights Commission has said it could take enforcement action over the complaints, ranging from a voluntary agreement to address the issue raised to a full-blown investigation. In other words, actually giving Labour the opportunity to brush this under the carpet, and Labour being Labour has decided that they are going to completely go against it because they thought that they were in the right. Just read that again so people understand what my reasoning is. Enforcement action over the complaints, ranging from a voluntary agreement, that means the Equality and Human Rights Commission having an agreement to address the issue with Labour, rather than having a full-blown investigation against it. Yeah. Why aren't Labour taking the agreement to address the issue? I'll tell you why. Because that means that they have to accept that it's happening. So it will be contacting the party to set out its concerns and ask for a response within 14 days. I could play the Corbyn, there is no space for racism, but at this point, I really don't think there's much point in listening to what he has to say when he's been proven to be a liar on multiple occasions, in my opinion, especially when it comes to the form of anti-Semitism. If the watchdog finds that response to be unsatisfactory, it could then launch a formal investigation, and spokesman said, having received a number of complaints regarding anti-Semitism in the Labour Party. We believe that Labour may have unlawfully discriminated against people because of their ethnic and religious beliefs. Interesting. The party that preaches tolerance is now being investigated by a Human Rights Committee based on people's ethnicity and religious beliefs. Interesting. So, our concerns are significant for us to consider using statutory enforcement powers as set out in our enforcement policy. We are now engaging with the Labour Party to give them an opportunity to respond. So, Labour said it rejected completely any suggestion that the party acted unlawfully and would be cooperating fully with the EHRC. So again, even though the EHRC has given them an opportunity to be able to sweep this under the rug if they just admit that something happened, Labour still won't do that because they completely reject it because they don't want to admit it or deal with it. I mean, at this point in time. Labour is fully committed to the support, defence and celebration of the Jewish community and its organisation, the spokesman said. Interesting. Why are there so many Jewish MPs that are retiring and leaving your party, and so many supporters of Labour leaving your party because of anti-Semitism? I wonder. It can't be because there is, I don't know, anti-Semitism going on in your party, could there?
Nah.
You guys think about that.
Well, good. About bloody, again, we're back to the about bloody time, but about bloody time. Labour has been allowed to get away with all but murder for far too goddamn long. It is a very good thing that they are finally being brought up on this. Though I fully expect it, like you said, to be swept under the rug and covered up completely very quickly. But then again, every time they've tried that recently, it hasn't exactly worked out so well for them. So possibly the death of Labour.
I did not lay the wreath on that grave. I mean, I did, but, you know, it didn't happen the way you said it did.
Well, I mean, tell me I'm wrong. Honestly, this could well be the death of Labour. And to put it bluntly, it's about damn time. The entire party has got so corrupted in of itself. It's actually become its own little meme and a joke. And you know it's bad when one of the main political parties of a country has actually become this much of a joke that you can just meme it into stupidity. And there is literally nothing they can do because pretty much the next words out of their mouth are going to be anti-Semitic. It just seems to be their thing.
Yeah, I think we can kind of agree on that, to be fair. What about you, Mr. Point?
Well, should it really surprise everyone? Like, Labour has always been a party of hate of one kind or another. So it's like, oh, we hate the middle or upper class, we hate rich people. And then it's like, well, we also hate the white people. And then, well, okay, we don't hate black people, but we seem to think they're inferior to us because they need all this like mollycoddling, and so do all the women, and like, you know, they're a party of discrimination. Because if you're having all these affirmative action and victim mentality rhetoric, then it's just showing that you think you're superior to the people that you're white knighting for, and that's all they do. So the idea that they wouldn't do that with Judaism is silly, in my opinion. Of course, they're going to do it with that. They do it with everything else, and also where socialism goes, particularly Marxism, anti-Semitism always follows. Always, they're inseparable, because if you look at Jewish culture and why they've been persecuted over the centuries, it's usually to do with the fact they've got strong family units. They're a very close community. Their religion is more important to them than any state they might happen to occupy, and they have a very powerful oral history, all of which socialists cannot fucking stand because the state is God. And also, just like to wrap up, I used to be like heavily involved in the Palestine thing, right? And something I noticed which made me leave, aside from the fact I just decided that their whole argument was wrong, but one of the things that got me to that conclusion, or started me off to that conclusion very quickly, or suddenly, was that, and this is why people should take this into account. When you accuse like a Labour affiliated person of anti-Semitism, right? They will vehemently deny it, right? And the reason for that is that most of them aren't anti-Semitic, and they'll say criticizing the state of Israel is not anti-Semitic, which is true, and criticizing so-called Zionism is not anti-Semitic, which you could have a debate about that, because it depends what you mean by Zionism. And one thing I noticed the reason these people get so angry is because they're telling the truth. And one thing I noticed was what they were doing was they were bringing in young guys and women like me into the anti-Israel lobby, and they were teaching us about the evils of Zionism, right? And the way they described Zionism was the way somebody like Alex Jones or Ron Paul would describe globalism, which is in non-flattering terms, but it's not it's an ideology. It's not like a persecuted group. But what I was noticing was the people higher up in the movement, so to speak, were using the word Zionism in completely different ways to the way the people I was speaking to were using it. We were meaning, let's say, globalism and saying Zionism. But what they were meaning was Jews. But because we were all using the same word, to the untrained ear, you would just assume we were talking about Israeli foreign policy or global money laundering or something like that. And that's the thing. The people who are getting really angry about this and denying it, a lot of them are actually telling the truth. But the higher up ones know exactly what's going on, especially the ones like John McDonnell and Jeremy Corbyn, who are mad for Karl Marx. Karl Marx, who said that, you know, the god of the Jews is actually money, and his religion is that of the merchant. Like, and who wrote essays on things like the Jewish problem. Like, that's the person that they admire most in history. So of course they're anti-Semitic.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on most of the things you said. I mean, I've always found it very, very interesting that you have some people, I'll say this openly, you have some people that are on the Jewish side, so to speak, or whatever, on the Israeli side, saying that if you criticize Israel by any point, then you're anti-Semitic. I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all. You can criticize any state that you want about anything. That's the whole point of it. Now, if your sole criticism is that Israel is a Jewish state and is attacking Muslims, then, to be honest, I think that you have more of a problem with it being a Jewish state than them attacking Muslims, in their opinions. So I can see it from both sides. I can see it from both sides. But it's like what Trent just made, and that is that Marxism in itself, or socialism, or things like that, especially something that now Labour is vehemently involved in, seems to be about, I don't use this word lightly, indoctrination. To the point of, don't listen to what other people are saying, what we mean by these definitions. This is the true definition of the word. And I've noticed that a hell of a lot with people that I talk to on the internet now, where the definitions of the word seem to be skewed. They're similar enough for people to miss the actual definition of what the word means. So they're close enough. But if you know what the actual definition is, in the context in which they use the word, it doesn't fit. But the interpretation is that it does. And I've noticed this a hell of a lot. The language seems to be changing ever so slightly. And the reason why I bring this up predominantly is to say about the idea that the ideas of what anti-Semitism or Islamophobia or whatever the word is nowadays to describe these things is always changing. And it changes from the right and it changes from the left. It seems that the words are changing definitions to be able to fit the narrative that the people are trying to produce and portray. And that's a worrying thing for me, wherever it would be on the right or the left in this instance. As we've said so many times before on this channel, and by the same people that have been here and others that have been on here as well, if you control the present, you control the past. And if you control the past, you can control the future. And that's exactly how I see these things playing out. How different stories seem to be changing, how different words are changing definitions, how different definitions of actual Nazism, how the definitions of actual fascism seem to be changing. I'm not trying to suggest that either's on the right or either's on the left. I mean, the actual definitions of fascism, which is to make sure that the state is in complete and utter control of everything, is changing to now mean a cuss word. The same as now anti-Semitism is not actually produced for the attacking of Jews and the religion of Judaism in itself, but it's now a slur that the right now throws upon the left, and the left won't even admit that they have those prejudices. It just seems so silly and so partisan that people just don't seem to actually take notice of what's going on. The war doesn't seem to be with the actual point of, are these people anti-Semitic, are these people racist? It seems to be in the definitions of the words. Each side that tries to defend the badness that comes from each side wants to change the definitions to nullify what the definitions are. And I think that's the problem which we actually face more than any other form of heartache or hardship. Sorry.
Yeah,
Anyway,
there's a lot of disingenuous people throwing around the accusation. So although I believe that they do have a problem with this in that party, I don't believe that all the people leveling that accusation have honest intentions. But I do know a lot of people who have left the Labour Party because of this. Like, personally know them. And the other thing is that, as you said, you mentioned Islamophobia. So if we move from one group of treasonous sods to another, the Tory party are allegedly full of Islamophobes. But who levelled that accusation? Well, Baroness Farsi, who is an absolute blight on this country, and let's not forget, had to leave the Tory party in disgrace over expenses, I believe. And she is just trying to get the Identity Politics Brigade on her side so that she could probably weasel her way back into the Tory party. That's not because she believes they're genuinely Islamophobic. She's just using it for sheer personal gain. And there's going to be a lot of that when people scream anti-Semite at Labour as well.
Of course. The thing I've always found interesting about the Islamophobia accusations towards the Tories, and I'm not saying that certain aspects of them they may well be. Maybe even there's a Johnson out there that may be. I don't know. I don't know his personal views. I don't think he is, but maybe. But I don't think the party as a whole is anywhere near the levels of what people portray it to be. Otherwise, why would you have so many backbenchers that are Muslim? Why would you have Sajid Javid, a Muslim, the Home Secretary? If the party in itself was so against Islamophobia, so against Islam, and so against Muslims, why would they promote literally people that go into the Home Office, generally under most concessions, are probably destined to become Prime Minister? Generally, not always, but generally. So why would you produce and put in a Muslim to be a Home Secretary if you didn't think that he had a chance to become Prime Minister? Does not make sense to me. It does not compute. I mean, maybe I'm wrong on that one. What do you guys think?
No, I agree. I think that these people are just full of shit because they're politicians.
Yeah, he said it perfectly. I've got nothing I can really add to that.
Okay, well, I suppose I better carry on with this. I'd say news. Sky report.
Fake news.
It's fake news. Sorry, anti-Semitism complaints received since April 2018 related to about 0.1% of our membership, but one anti-Semite in our party is too many. So these are the people that you've actually said and actually deemed them to be valid criticisms or complaints? Or is there a process in which you don't actually take the whole number of the complaints that have actually been levied, and it's only to do with our membership, not to do with people outside of... See, that's the thing that I hate about this with Labour. That everything is to do about our membership, our membership, our membership. What about the people that are not part of the membership? They're not part of the Momentum. They're not so heavily aligned with what you think and what you feel and the belief in Jeremy Corbyn and all of everything else. What about the people that are Labour supporters, that are literally coming to you and saying, we think that we have anti-Semitism going in our party? Does that count? Or does it have to actually be in the membership for it to fucking count? It's that little terminology, which is something that foreign dictators use to be able to shuffle the numbers around. So our government doesn't do this. But I'm not part of the government, by the way. It worries me that we hide behind the our membership. It worries me that they use that as an excuse. Again, I'm rambling on and on again. What do you guys think? Do you think I'm overreacting on that, or is there some truth to what I'm spouting?
There's a lot of truth in what you're saying, mate. It's yeah, you got to remember that anything that we get to hear, you might as well assume is a load of crap, and it's the only things that they're willing to actually allow to be put out there. Because as much as we point out with America and their media issues, Britain is just as bad, if not worse. After all, we have very deeply entrenched things over here, not necessarily quite as bad for the Americans, thankfully.
Well,
But
also, oh, sorry, I thought you were finished.
no. Or basically, my end point in this is, if they are anti-Semitic, they should not be allowed to be a ruling party in this country, and they need to be removed. The only problem with this is we don't actually have any other parties in Britain that could take their place. So I suppose, as much as I don't really like having to use this term, but too big to fail.
Yeah, I probably agree with that, to be fair. What do you think, Mr. Coffeepoint?
I think it was a very astute observation by Mr. Quinn. And I also think that part of this is what you say and how you act, and what you believe and how you act aren't the same thing. And if you act in a certain way that contradicts what you believe, then it almost doesn't matter what you believe. And where I'm going with that is, there is a massive presence of Islam in the Labour Party in proportion to other parties. And in the Quran, there are many passages about excluding and killing Jewish people. They are also, the Labour Party are also friends with groups like Hamas.
Well, also, Jeremy Corbyn himself, the Labour Party under Tony Blair wasn't friends with Hamas.
Yeah, but like, so the thing is, right? If you're friends with Hamas and promoting Hamas and giving them platforms and giving them money, it almost doesn't matter what you believe, because it's like, let's take neo-Nazism, right? If I am a member of a political party and I am not a white supremacist, but I have in my party people who give money to white supremacists, are friends with white supremacists, allow excuses for people who are white supremacists committing violence against black people, then it doesn't matter whether they think they're a white supremacist or not, because they're funding it and making it normal. And so if you take the same thing with the Hamas Labour connection, and it's not just Hamas, it's Hezbollah and all that fucking bunch of lunatics as well. And so it doesn't matter if the person in Labour thinks they're not anti-Semitic. If they're helping these groups, they are behaving in a manner that's anti-Semitic. Which I know sounds like a horrible word game, but it really is. Your actions are more important.
I completely agree. If you have somebody that's suffering from psychosis, you don't wait for the person to go, if he's hurting other people, you don't wait for the person to go, here, I'm suffering. You kind of go up to the person and go, look, you seem like you're suffering. You have all the symptoms for this. You might want to go to the doctor. And it's the same thing for anti-Semitism, and it's the same thing for racism and things like that. People that produce those hate-filled ideologies don't believe that they are being hateful. They believe in the ideology. And if you believe in the ideology, you don't think that you're doing something hateful. So when people are telling you you're doing something hateful, you don't believe it. You don't believe the definition of the words. And it ties back to what I said. The definition of the words are changing to fit people that believe in the ideology. So I do agree with both of my panelists on this, or co-presenters, I suppose, on this, that I do think that this has the point of proving that even if you believe that Labour is anti-Semitic or not anti-Semitic, it has been on the rise since somebody has taken power. And it does seem to correlate, and obviously correlation doesn't equal causation, but we can take inference from the correlation that it seems to be because of somebody taking particular power and putting particular ideologies to the forefront of what's going on in the Labour Party, socialism in itself, Marxism and whatnot. It seems to be pushing other forms of rhetoric and dogma that comes with that ideology, especially as Mr. Point has made that point of if you are friends and if you promote to the point where you invite leaders and terrorist men into your house to have dinner, defend their rights and also invite them to the House of Commons. And I'm not just talking about an RRA either. I'm actually talking about somebody who was to do with Hezbollah at the time, that he invited into the House of Commons after being convicted. Oh, sorry, no, he wasn't. Was he convicted? I can't remember. But basically, he was a terrorist and was invited into the Houses of Commons. I believe on my video that I did Is Labour Anti-Semitic, I laid everything down in the information for that. So if you want to go and have a look for that, you can. It's not. I'm not just pulling that out of my arse. But if you are doing that with people that you are trying to, he says that he wants to talk and open dialogue up. Why is it that you only want to open dialogue up with one side? And it's always the side that's against the nation. It's never with the nation. I just find that really interesting.
Yeah, I think it's a fair comment. I haven't got anything else to say. Like, I think I've made my point already. So, but I agree with that last part.
Yeah. What about you, Mr. Quinn?
As I've already said, all of these points are accurate, but we've still got the whole too big to fail thing, and that is how they're going to. That is what I believe they are going to probably try and pull to get themselves out of this little swamp in.
I mean, I can see your point of view on how they're too big to fail, but I would also counter your point by saying that, one, if enough people left the party under the disgust of anti-Semitism, then it is not too big to fail then, and they can form a separate party, for instance. Secondly, they could also reform the party and keep Jeremy Corbyn out. Because once the Corbynistas don't have a Corbynite to be able to follow, then I would have thought that the ideology would then subside and maybe dying in its own self and own anguish. Those are the two ways that I see it being dealt with internally. But third would be the case of actually what's going on here and an inquest to find out and root out all the problems and getting rid of those people internally and externally, and then changing them, putting more people in that are not anti-Semitic. So I do see it being able to change, just not until Jeremy Corbyn leaves.
Agreed. He definitely appears to be a bit of a problem for their party, which is as polite a way as I can put that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, as far as I'm aware, I believe that there was a story going around that up in Scotland. So I don't know if you've heard of this or not, Mr. Point, but I only saw it on Twitter a couple of hours ago, to be fair. I should have saved it. But I believe that the Labour Party up in Scotland was having a conference about how to deal with anti-Semitism. It was going to pass a bill in its own party. And he got kicked out by the Labour Party. They didn't want anything to do with it. They didn't want to admit to it. They didn't want to do anything with it. I believe that happened up in Scotland, the Scottish Labour. So it doesn't seem that it's just to do with English Labour or Jeremy Corbyn's Labour in general. It also seems to be transcending nations now as well.
Yeah, and Scotland has bigger problems than that, though, because, I mean, part of the reason I don't pay attention to Scottish politics is because the SNP have an absolute stranglehold over the whole country, and it's pretty much physically unsafe to disagree with them in public.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I can see that completely and utterly.
Whether one is a Semite or not.
Yes, no, I completely agree with that. And considering that they are the Scottish National Party and they are more socialist than the Socialist Labour Party, is kind of worrying.
Had some very warm views towards that Adolf chap as well back in the day.
Well, I think that's the reason why they might have called it a national party in the S. Oh, wait, no, I do have an S. Never mind. I suppose that the Scottish, that's not necessarily a Scottish, it might be a Socialist Nationalist Party, maybe.
Well, they fit in with the idea of fascism far better than they do nationalism or populism, because they're very pro-transnational organizations. They're very globalist, and they don't like the people getting to decide what they want, and they want everything to be run from the government in some respect or another. So really, they're very Reich-like in their behaviour.
I can definitely see your point on that one. definitely see your point. I suppose there's so much that we could carry on talking about the Scottish Nationalist Party or the Social Nationalist Party, but I suppose we should continue with Labour's own anti-Semitism as it's the story, I suppose. So I would find that very interesting. A formal investigation would see that EHRC request interviews with top Labour figures. The watchdog would also be able to demand access to correspondence, emails, other information to determine how the party dealt with anti-Semitism allegations. Well, they just told you, only 0.1% of their membership had any complaints towards it. So it's all in your heads, guys. Sorry, I had to put that there. The action from the EHRC has been taken in response to complaints from a number of organisations and individuals, including a campaign against anti-Semitism. Yeah, but they're not the membership, though, so they don't count. Its chairman, Gideon Flatter, said that the Labour Party has repeatedly failed to address its own anti-Semitism problem, resulting in MPs and members abandoning the party, apart from him, because Big Red's on the big settee. Hang on. It is a sad indictment that once great anti-racist Labour Party is now being investigated by the Equality and Human Rights Regulator it established just a decade ago. How do you know you fucked up when your own creation is now coming after you for your own views? You used to be able to force other people to your own ideology or ideology. It's now coming after you because of the hatred that you're spouting. There's some level of fucking irony there. Or is it masochism? I can't bloody remember. Words are hard.
Karma's a bitch.
Yeah, karma is a bitch. Ah. He added that the Jewish community had, quotation, gone to very conceivable lengths to persuade the party to act, but fund their efforts persistently rebuffed. We had no option but to seek an external impartial investigation, and that is why the Equality and Human Rights Commission to investigate illegal anti-Semitic discrimination and victimization in their institutionally racist... Wow, that's fucking... Wow, okay.
Don't hold back there, eh?
Yeah, definitely not holding back. Wow. You go. What's your name again? Where'd you go? Where's the name? Where's it gone? I've lost it.
So,
What was it, Margaret Hodge?
No. This is Gideon. Is it Gideon? I think it's Gideon.
yep. Gideon Falker.
Yes, yeah. Gideon definitely went on fucking edge with that one, didn't he? I mean, I find this whole thing, again, I'm going to editorialize, but time and time again, you see that the communities in which Labour themselves seem to, I use that in quotation marks, but seem to be going anti-Semitic against, or going, having forms of prejudice against, even that will do, are coming to the Labour Party and going, look, let's sort this out, and trying to do it behind closed doors and close the door and do it privately. And all Labour seem to do is go, nah, it's not happening. Our membership told us it's not happening, and that's all that matters. It has nothing to do with the communities in which they're actually physically, well, I don't know, maybe physically, but attacking figuratively at this moment in time at least. Going after them, and then the actual oppressee is coming up to the oppressor and going, well, let's sort this out. And people that breed tolerance, that literally breed this ideology night and day, forcing it down other people's throats by saying you need to be diverse and inclusive, will not talk to the people that they believe are being oppressed by them. That seems kind of closed-minded, doesn't it? That seems kind of, I don't know, blinded by their own power, blinded by their own ideologies, that they can't do no wrong. I don't know. What
Don't
do you
do as I do as I tell you.
exactly what I was thinking. It seems to be that case that no matter how many times these companies or these people, commissions, groups, whatever word you want to use, come to Labour to try and deal with this amicably and behind closed doors, Labour just tell them to fuck off. And this seems to be Labour's own creation. The Labour seem to be the ones that are actually making these allegations worse by not dealing with them even internally and forcing it to be done externally with the news around them. It's like they're trying to stop themselves from winning any election. Before all the anti-Semitism stuff all started coming out, Labour were massively ahead of the Tories for obvious reasons at that point. But now all this stuff's come out, it seems to be, in my opinion, self-destruction, self-mutilation, if you will. I'm going to cut my nose off to spite my face to prove you wrong. That's what it seems like to me. What do you guys think, rather than me rambling and rambling?
No, you're right, mate. It really is. They have made themselves all but votable for. You know, it's as simple as that. Simply, they are destroying their own chances. The only thing that interests me is who are they going to end up blaming for this? That's the one thing that really should be thought of, because these are the people that will quite happily twist things until it goes their way. So who are they going to target with these accusations so as it can be moved off of them? I think that's something we need to actually look at.
I kind of agree with you on that one. I mean, I have my theories. I think you can go one of three ways. If Jeremy Corbyn stays in power, it'll be blamed on John McDonnell. If John McDonnell is able to get into power, it'll be blamed on Jeremy Corbyn. Now, if none of those two things happen and both of them get left, it will get blamed on the membership for not reporting it more, and it will be blamed on them rather than the party. That's what I think.
I think they'll just blame the far right, because as we know, the far right is an amorphous mass of everybody that they dislike and doesn't actually need to be defined in any way, but everybody is scared of it. So that's what they'll do. And yeah, I agree with the point that they're being eaten by their own horrifying larvae here.
I completely agree. Oh, ooh, that's a fake. Never mind, carry on. Right, so the Jewish Labour movement said it had got in touch with the watchdog in November, asking it to investigate the allegation Labour was institutionally anti-Semitic. After years of anti-Jewish racism experienced by our members, oh, interesting, a long pattern of denial, obfuscation, and inaction by those with the power and ability to do something about it, we felt that there was little choice but to secure a fully independent inquiry not encumbered by corrupted internal practices, it said in a statement. This is fucking interesting that the Jewish Labour movement, as in that these are Labour supporters in general, have been saying for years that they, at the hands of not the far right, not Nazis, not conservatives, but their own members, as in Labour members or Labour politicians, have been giving them anti-Semitic racism for years. That's fucking interesting. Now, I know when the left attack themselves, they go full in, but that's a bit worrying if it's been going on for years and only just starting to come out now.
Yeah.
That's very, very worrying.
The thing is, it's worrying, but it's not actually that surprising to me, as bad as that sounds.
Oh, I agree. I completely agree. Did you want to elaborate, or?
To be honest, it is as simple as I've said. I mean, these things go on we being the people, don't get to hear about this shit because it gets covered up, back rooms, deals, etc. It's only now that it's just got so big that they can't hide this shit. It really actually makes me wonder what else we're not actually hearing. What other little things are going on that nobody talks about? You know, the proverbial dirty little secrets. I am glad that this has come up, and although I've been sitting here saying the too big to fail thing, I actually hope they do fail, because after all, these are supposed to be for the common people. They're doing stuff like this. No, that's not acceptable as a mainstream party. Now, of course, if they just want to change their symbol from whatever it is to, oh, I don't know, a swastika, at least they'd be more honest.
They'd definitely be more socialist. Sorry, I had to get the joke in there. But no, I do completely not agree with your point on that.
Yeah, same.
I just want to read this last little bit because I think it's really fucking interesting. The Board of Deputies of British Jews welcomed the EHRC's announcement, with President Marie Slin saying the proposed independent investigation. This is the Board of Deputies of British Jews, by the way, with the actual president saying this. The proposed independent investigation confirms that the Jewish community has known for a long time, that the Labour leadership has a problem with anti-Jewish racism, which it is unable or unwilling to solve. That is a direct quote from the president of the Board of Deputies of British Jews. That's worrying that the leader or potential leader of the United Kingdom has had so much problem for the party in general, has had so much problems that this has been known for years, not months, not a couple of weeks, not yesterday, fucking years. And every time that they've tried to deal with this quietly, as the quotation goes, it's unable to sort it out due to systemic ideologies, I suppose, as a guess, or more likely, in my opinion at least, is unwilling to solve it because it believes in it. Again, my opinion, not truth. What do you guys think about that? Because I'm perplexed that this is taking so long to come out. As Quinn said before, it's amazing that this level of racism in a anti-racist party for the workers, for the people, has decided that it's not going to deal with it, to the point of the Board of Deputies of British Jews, to the actual Labour Jewish workforce as well, or the Labour Jews, have all come out and said that this has been going on for years, that the racism and anti-Semitism has been going on for years in the party. And nobody's been doing anything, and people think that it's okay, and it's only coming to the forefront now. That's fucking worrying that that's going to happen. That means in 2016, or whenever the last actual general election was, rather, that Jeremy Corbyn, with all of this, could have been our leader. It could have been the person that we look to for moral guidance in some aspects, and would have been the case of this anti-Semitism going around in our once great nation that harbored Jews from the Nazis. And now we're going to be the ones that are actually persecuting them. That's just amazing to me that the Labour Party could even be considering or even accepting that from any ideology which they may or may not support. It's just worrying that they're guilty or unwilling to solve it. Carry on.
They're guilty of double thinking mental gymnastics as always, though, because they look. If you look at what happened with that Rachel Riley woman, this is the thing. This is so fucked up, right? Because it's like they targeted her because she's Jewish, but she's not Jewish. She's an atheist, and her lineage is Jewish, which to me are two completely different things. Because I hate that whole identitarianism thing as well. Like with I'm Jewish, but you don't believe in God. Yeah, but I'm still Jewish. It's like, okay, whatever. That annoys me to begin with because it's very confusing. Then if you look at the people who attacked her, they attacked her because they perceived her as Jewish, but then they said, oh yeah, but no, like she's a Zionist, that's the problem. So they're like saying, you know, oh, our problem is with the Zionists. And you can just, you're sitting there thinking like, do you not find it interesting that the people you call Zionists are always fucking Jewish, and the people that you harass for being Zionists are always Jewish? Have you not noticed this about yourself? But, you know, self-awareness from political ideologues is not usually forthcoming. However, I think with this as well, I want to take these pressure groups with a pinch of salt as well, because during the Dankula trial, if like people went around asking, you know, what the public opinion was of the pug joke, and most Jews didn't give a shit. The Israelis came out in his defense, but there were some agitating Jewish groups who wanted him to go to jail for it. And it's like, yeah, but it was obviously a joke. And they're like, well, we don't care, it's still anti-Semitic. It's like, well, I don't like you defining anti-Semitic then.
Which is what they actually did inside the actual party, and one of the reasons why the dame from Labour actually said that she was going to leave the party, because they were going to change the definition, as I said at the beginning, what anti-Semitism meant. I'm just literally going to go off for literally 2 minutes. So if Crimson Quinn and Cropper wouldn't mind continuing the same story, I'm just sorting something out. I'll only be 2 minutes.
Yeah, no problem, mate. Well, as I was saying earlier, and don't get me wrong, I know we're talking about the anti-Semitism part of it, but you kind of have to wonder what else is going on that we're not hearing about. Now, I know that sounds like I'm going a little bit tinfoil hat, and well,
Please do.
yeah, let's be fair. This is me. I'm rather known for the whole tinfoil hat thing, but what else are we not hearing? What else have they managed to keep covered up so far? How bad truly are they? This is the thing that I don't think people are really looking all the way through to exactly how bad it could be. I mean, we have people, like you said, that could have been in charge of this country. And oh my God, if he'd become in charge of this country, I know, just know, okay? I would actually rather Diane Abbott than Jeremy Corbyn. And yes, I just did say that, okay? But the point being is we don't hear half of this shit. This has just managed to get to a boil, to a point that we are actually being told about this. Honestly, what else is going on in the fucking background that we are not hearing? That is something I would actually like to know. Your opinion?
The mind boggles. I mean, if you remember back with remember when Harriet Harperson was trying to get paedophilia normalized?
Yeah.
As a sexual orientation, it's just like, well, if that was the 70s, they've had a lot of time since then to do God knows what. And you could see the unholy coalition of feminists and intersectionalists and identitarians, anti-Semites, hardcore Muslim fundamentalists, hardcore, sort of, woke SGW atheist types who want religious people all fucking sliced up into little pieces. If you can find a hate group for it, they probably have representation in our politics, universally too. Like, although I think that the two parties, this is the interesting thing, is I don't think that, I've often said that they're all cheek of the same arse, but they do have different characters, if that makes sense. Like, they do believe in all the same things, and there is no substantive difference between them. But I think you could safely say that Labour are more likely to be anti-Semitic than the Tories are, but you probably do get both in both. And I just the mind boggles. I wouldn't even want to go down. Like, you see the shit that they uncover, that like all these protesters get up to with, you know, child drag queens and everything like that. And it's like, fuck knows, there's no end to it, man. And that's from the outside. That's the stuff they're openly prepared to admit.
Yeah, which worries me about the Labour aspect of things, that if this is the level that is being able to be exposed, how much further, as Quinn said before, how much further does it actually bloody go? Because if this is just scratching the surface and this has been going on for years and everything else like that, and it takes a lot of ridicule and oppression for people to change ideologies, to be able to go against what they actually believe in, especially if they believe in Labour, as we said, with the different Jewish Labour workforce, the other one as well that was in the story. It's amazing that these people are now coming forward but haven't, but yet they're still coming out to say that it's been happening for years. And that's what worries me about the whole situation. I'm like Mr. Quinn and probably like Mr. Point. I kind of had an idea that this was going on. I watch and listen to Rachel Riley quite often, probably not for the political reasons or the countdown reasons as most people do, but for other reasons. But either way, I still listen to her. And she's been going on about this for, I think it's been at least a year and a half she's been going on about it. If I'm wrong on that, it would have been longer. I'm trying to say that it's at least been going on for a year and a half, and that's amazing to me.
Do you know what surprises me about it, though?
Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me that it's going on. It surprises me that people are surprised. Like, the whole point in socialism is you have to have a hate group, you know? You have to have it. Otherwise, it doesn't have a purpose. And people go on about that.
You have to other people, don't you?
Hmm?
You have to other the other people. It's us against them. It's just sheer.
Yeah, you've got to have the evil class, and then they have to have the infiltrators in your own group, so you can persecute your own group, and then you have to have class enemies that haven't done anything wrong but can be in some way associated. You know, it's like, just look through the long, butchered history of socialism, and you can see it. And the thing is, like, people go on, like, this isn't just a criticism of the Labour Party as well, because I believe that the Conservative Party is a socialist party. I think it's a centre-left party, and I think that Labour is far left. And the thing is, the Tories are going down the same route, and these people want power, and that's all they want. They don't believe in anything except power for the sake of power, and their followers believe the same thing. Now, they might dress it up in language of compassion or getting ahead in life or looking after people, but that's just a pretext. They want control over the will of other people. That is all they want. And that can't lead anywhere except corruption and hatred. So why are people surprised when it leads to corruption and hatred?
Yeah, no, I'm completely not with you. It's when you have. I want to use a saying that everybody will understand. The lady doth protest too much. Meaning that if your whole ideology is about persecution and the oppressions of peoples, there's a reason for it. I'm just going to leave that as that.
I agree with you fully. I've used that term on more than a few occasions myself, mate. So, yes, I completely agree with you.
What about you, Mr. Point? I know that you've been talking quite a bit as well while I was changing my microphone again.
You're sounding much better than either the last two times that you tried it.
It's all right. I'll probably fall out and die again at some point, I'm sure. Microphones are not friends with me, so I always end up losing them, or they die, or I throw them across the room because they don't work like I did the other one. It's now dead and broken. There's no more snowball. But anyway, it's a good thing that there was no sound for that, because it really did go bang. It popped and everything.
Oh, I'd have liked to have heard that. That'd been cool.
It would have been, but shut up, Quinn. Actually, no, don't shut up, because I need you to actually put an opinion across.
Yeah.
At some point.
Well, yeah. Basically, my opinion on this whole thing is it's about goddamn time Labour finally got kicked in the balls for the crap they're doing. There you go. Nice and blunt, nice and simple, and people can't get confused about my opinion.
Yeah. No, I completely not agree. I think it's really is a case of if this has been going on for years, then people have been covering up for people. And if people have been covering up for people, then they don't believe in what they preach. They actually believe in the leader rather than what the leader says. And that's not the ideology of somebody that should be healthy or mentally healthy. That's somebody that purely believes in the person rather than the ideology in which that person spouts. And probably not a good thing for people to be able to do that.
No, it's not like there's been a time, oh, I don't know, around 1936, that there was a gentleman who, using his charisma and power, managed to get people to believe in him no matter what he was actually telling people to do. I can't see any connection with our Jewish brethren there whatsoever. Can you?
I have no idea, but the Night of Long Knives sounds familiar.
Ah, yes, I've heard rumors about this.
Yeah, does anybody else have anything to say regarding that topic that I think we've covered pretty well, especially considering that we've covered that for almost an hour? Which I kind of knew that was going to happen, so that's the reason why I picked that story there. So does anybody have anything else to say, and we'll spend a little bit of time on this last story, because I think it's interesting.
No, I'm all done.
Yeah.
I would simply fuck them, let them burn.
The views expressed on this stream are not necessarily the views of the Common Sense Guy.
This is democracy and you're outnumbered. Bring back the rope.
Okay, fine. Fine, if I can't vote against you, I'll vote with you. Wait, did that happen in Labour? So, this is a very interesting story for me because Thai court disbands political party for nominating princess. Now, it's interesting because the reason why is because there's so many different aspects of this story to which it kind of touches into. But mainly because a political party nominated a royal to be able to be its representative in a democratic election. Shit happened. I'll just go with that. Shit happened. And let's just say 10 years is a long time. So, Bangkok, Thailand's constitutional court on Thursday ordered the dissolution of a major political party ahead of this month's general election because it nominated a member of the royal family to be its candidate for prime minister. Yes, you heard that right. A party nominated a royal to be their leader to maybe win a prime ministership. And because they nominated that person, because of that solely, they are now disbanded. They have been dissolved.
This is a funny one, isn't it? Because obviously the Thais have... Is it the Thai people that have an exiled king just now?
I'm
I think
not
it's Thailand.
sure about that.
I think their king
it might be because they had a military coup very, very recently, so I'm not sure about that. But I think that was to take the military. I think it was the royal military taking power over the government again.
Well,
So
what I
I'm not
remember being
sure.
was his sister became prime minister, and they were trying to get the king back that way, but people were going absolutely berserk at this because there was a coup and the king was responsible, blah, blah, blah. So I just think this is all very funny. Like, not for the people involved, obviously. It's a shame on the Thai people because, you know, I want them to live in a nice country. But as far as just as a mental exercise, it's quite funny. It's just like, you know, the government have banned the royal family because they were corrupt. It's like, yes, but if we make the princess the head of state, we can bring the king back. It's just amusing.
No, they still have a king. They still have sort of like monarchy democracy, kind of similar to ours. Very, very. It's not that similar, but they still have a king, and he still has power for legislation as well. I'll carry on reading the story, and we'll get more of an idea of what's going on. The Thai Raska Chart Party on February 8th nominated Princess Fuck Me as its candidate for the March 24th polls. However, her brother King Yeah, whatever. Later that day, issued a royal order calling the nomination highly inappropriate and unconstitutional. So again, saying that they do actually have a king, and the king does actually have power still over the land to be able to stop things from happening. So in its ruling, the court also banned members of the party's executive board from political activity for 10 years. Now, it's one thing, as we just kind of alluded to say, okay, you did a little bit stupid there by nominating a princess to be your democratically elected leader, which, to be fair, I don't see much of a problem with. If she was voted to be prime minister, then I don't see the problem in it. But besides that issue, even if they did something completely wrong by nominating the wrong person, and I open this up to the panel before we carry on reading, is it wrong for them to be disbanded, basically, for over 10 years because of that one decision of nomination?
No, that does kind of seem like a little bit of an overstretch of power, doesn't it?
To me, it does, yes. What about you, Mr. Point?
Well, it would all depend on the details, because I think democracy largely is a load of shit anyway, because it leads to things like this, like, oh, let's have a separation of powers. Okay, but what if we just have a vote to allow one, set of powers to be allowed to rule the other set of powers? Well, that's completely fine, because democracy, like, this is where it always leads. But I think that it would depend on the circumstances. Like, if they said, look, you need to get rid of this person because it's a conflict of interest and it violates separation of powers, you can't allow them to be a run in your party, and they said, well, no, fuck off, and then the court disbanded them, well, that I could understand that. But if the court just disbanded them, then that's obviously a gross misuse of legal power. And also, like, with the thing, like, if you imagine it over here, I don't know quite how their monarchy is set up, but if you were, let's say, a princess, and you were in the Labour Party or the Conservative Party, and you had a ministerial position, I wouldn't see a problem with that if you weren't in line to the throne. If that makes sense, because you can have an aristocratic title like that without ever being at risk of ruling. Because like Princess Diana was never going to be queen, for instance.
Yeah.
So having her as the leader of, or a shadow minister, I don't see, it would look bad, but I don't see how she could actually conflate the separation of powers. If the Queen wanted to, that would be different. But as far as this goes, I don't know the case well enough, but it seems like corruption to me.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I mean, I don't know the ins and outs and everything that's going on, and if she's related by blood or marriage, or how many times removed that she's going to be before she could or would be Queen of Thailand. I'm not 100% sure. But I still think the reason why I chose the story is because it's interesting. Because a lot of people would say, well, no, you're part of the monarchy, so you could never be part of democracy. I personally find that very, very interesting, especially if you don't have the monarchy that has any, should we say, legislative power. Now, don't get me wrong, even in our country, the Queen can take complete and utter control over everything and every form of law all over again. She can do that.
I wish she fucking would, to be honest with you.
Huh?
Agreed. He
Sorry?
said he wished that she would, and I agreed completely.
Yeah, I kind of disagree, but I do understand the point. But the thing that I was going on with was to say I fucked it.
We derailed his train. Whoops.
Yeah, it's fine. The reason why I find this story interesting is literally because of this instance. Because even if you did have a monarchy or anything else like that, even if it does have powers or doesn't have powers, is it wrong for a party to nominate that person to be leader of that party? Now, don't get me wrong, I know that we have a prejudice towards monarchy and the two legislatures possibly becoming one, for instance, and maybe the level of corruption coming up. That's not what I'm trying to get into the detail. Though the point that I'm trying to say, is it right for them to be excluded from democracy because of their title?
good. Actually, that's a very good question, because after all, just because the person happens to have possibly royal blood doesn't mean that they're not actually allowed to have their own bloody opinion. And that is one of the whole things about a democracy, is it gives people the option to express their opinion by voting. Now, if she doesn't agree with, I don't know the names or how their political system works, so I'm not going to bother trying to balls it up and say it wrong. I'm just going to use British terms. But let's say she was part of the Labour Party. There shouldn't be anything wrong with her going, standing for a position to remove people in the Conservative Party. It's either that or, she gets her people to go out there with their bloody great big swords and hack their heads off. Oh, yeah, she's a princess. What are you going to do?
Yeah, that's not exactly where I was going, but great point.
That's why you have me on here, for these very blunt answers. Let's be fair.
Well, let's hope their swords are blunt.
Oh, you joking? No, that's even worse, mate. That's like 4 or 5 swings. You want their blades sharp. If they're going to do it, get them to do it and do it properly.
Nah, hurt everyone. Anyway, Mr. Point, what's your take on that?
I think they chopped his head off.
They must have done. They must have done. Well, if he comes back, I'm not sure if he's gone away to the toilet or something like that at this moment in time. But if he does come back, we'll get his view on that. But I will carry on.
Okay.
The decision will raise fresh questions about the fairness of the upcoming election. The first since a military coup toppled the democratically elected government in May 2014. So they've had 4 years without a democratically elected government. I mean, to be fair, that's not too far away from Sweden. There's a coup. So, Ty Ruskachart is aligned with former Prime Minister.
Yes.
That makes more sense. So this has nothing to do with the fact that she's a princess. It has more to do with the fact that the military doesn't want there to be a chance of that party taking control again and having a democratically elected leader again. So point was correct, but in the wrong way. The actual system itself is corrupt by stopping her from actually being able to run as a candidate or nomination, whatever. That's interesting. Whose allied parties have won every national election since 2001, but have twice been toppled in coups. The latest election is being held under rules that are generally acknowledged to make it hard for the pro-Thaksin parties to win a majority, and the dissolution of the Thai Ruskachart will make that all the more difficult. See, this doesn't seem to be anything now, in my opinion, to do with the fact that they nominated the princess. This has everything to do as politically motivated to stop them from having a chance of winning a democratic election, in my opinion, though I could be biased or a little bit wrong on this one. So, Mr. Point or Mr. Quinn, do you have anything to add?
Well, now that we've got a little bit more information, we can see why they're doing it. I mean, is it correct and is it acceptable? Not necessarily to us, but then again, without, wanting to sound a little bit too centrist here, it's not actually our right to question the way they do things unless their actions are directly going against humanity itself. I.e., if they're going out there and, again, we're going back to hacking the heads, but hacking the heads off people that don't agree with their opinion, at that point, yes, we do have a right to go, oi, stop it. But if this is their political way of doing things, that's another matter. The problem is like you say, it's the military that's getting involved in this. And yeah, you don't necessarily want the military to actually be in control, because that's when bad shit really goes down, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was just reading a little bit further, and it gets worse.
Oh, go for it.
The Constitutional Court is one of the most conservative institutions in Thailand, and by the way, that means anyway, rather than me editorializing, and has consistently ruled against Thanksgiving and his allies. In a statement explaining Thursday's ruling, was even more critical of the party's action than the king's had been. It appeared to ascribe ill intentions to the party's actions, blaming it for endangering a tradition that keeps the royal family above politics. I mean, it's a great excuse, but it's an excuse to get rid of the party because you know that they're going to win.
Yeah.
In my opinion. I find that very, 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 very sad. I mean, you could argue the fact, and I know people could quite easily, excuse me for a second, could argue the fact that they shouldn't have asked the princess to become their leader and run for it. So I do agree that it could be that way, and I can see your point. But this has just been as Donald Trump would call it, a witch hunt to be able to get rid of the party to make sure that everything swings into the other party's favors. That's all it really is. Yeah, okay, fair enough. They maybe deserve some sort of form of reprimand, but not being forced to disband for over 10 years.
Yeah.
I don't believe that.
No, I agree with you, mate. It's well, it's amazing what we find out as we read on. You know, it starts off one way, and then suddenly you start to realize, oh, really? Case though, more information you have, chance you've got of coming up with a more valid opinion on it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's quite obvious that the more information that you get, the more that you can have an opinion. I've noticed Ain't Jack has said that it's not necessarily a bad thing for a military coup to take over. I wasn't saying it was. I never said it was. I was saying that if the military has taken over a democratically elected, by their terminology, then it's a coup to enforce military power over democracy. Now, I know that you personally have a different view on what democracy is. I understand and respect your views. But at the same time, if the people have voted for the democratic parties that they did have, then why should the military take over? Makes no sense. It all goes to the point of them taking over because they want to, not because people have asked them to. But because a dictator has decided that we don't want democracy, I know best, I know better than everybody else, I will tell them what I want them to do. Hello, Mr. Point. How are you doing? I'm sure you've been hearing us.
Yeah, I just had to nip away for a bit. I'm going to have to finish reasonably quickly, though. So, but I agree with your point about the military, and I think that if you agree that a dictatorship can never be a good thing, then you're kind of thinking along the lines of that you don't think humans are fallible. You think one head is better than several, and you also think that somebody else knows what's best for you better than you do, which is a very peculiar way of looking at the world.
Yeah, or you think that you've got a chance of being that sole supreme leader, and that's
and
the
the
reason
Thais
why
aren't happy. They keep having fucking attempted counter revolutions and all that all the time. So it's not like they're happy with the setup. But anyway, I'm going to have to go, guys. I appreciate you having me on, but I've just run out of time is all.
Yeah, did you want to show your channel or anything at all, mate? Because
if people can head over, I've got some videos up on like Twitter censorship and comic book movies and public domain characters and things like that, and I've got my comic out. And thanks to CSG for having me on, and for Mr. Quinn for generally being good chat. And thanks to everybody in the chat for turning up and watching us and participating and all that. So cheers, everyone, and I'll catch you hopefully next week.
Thank you very much, Mr. Point.
You look after yourself, mate.
Yes, thanks, man, and good luck. Good luck in Ancapistan, CSG.
Yes. Yeah. That will be interesting. Thank you, Mr. Point. He did do a very, very interesting video, Mr. Crumple Point, about the Gillette and the Gillette ads and going into why they are becoming more of a progressive thing. I suggest that you watch it. It's quite interesting, to be fair. But yeah, Mr. Point. Actually, no. I'll save it for my little final word. To be fair. Do you have anything else that you would want to talk about this story at all, Mr. Quinn, or are you happy to end it as we have done and do final words?
To be fair, until we get greater information, it's probably better that we don't say anything that actually makes us look like complete idiots. After all, we proved out that these people have been up to things that we haven't yet heard of, that makes it a lot more understandable. Given the information we have, what they're doing definitely seems unreasonable. I'm not prejudging, I'm just pointing out, as we see it, things don't look correct to our eyes. All yours, sir.
No, that's fine. I kind of agree. From the information that we do have, I do think that it seems that there's an overreaction and possibly a conspiracy to be able to get rid of an opposition that generally wins democratic elections, as in the people have chosen them to lead them, rather than military power has dictated, we shall rule you. But as Mr. Quinn said, as we do not live there, as we do not have all the relevant information and only what was put in the story, we shouldn't make too much of a judgment on what is or what has happened, though we can make an inference to what we see as the information put in front of us that has happened or what we believe to have happened. But yeah, no, I think that we should leave it there and move on to our final words, if you wouldn't mind, Mr. Quinn.
Certainly. Well, we'll start with something slightly lighter. I still think that the porn bikers should most definitely get themselves supported various different porn groups. After all, what they are doing is working for a charity. The moment you start going against charities, especially in Britain, you are automatically the bad guy, which means the UCI have absolutely crapped all over whatever respect they may think they have. So full support to the porn bikers. You go for it, people. Have a good time. Right, Labour. Just burn in hell and go away. Yes, this is my opinion. Come at me, bitches. And what? You know, that is how I feel about it. It is simple. And as for the Stanley thing, really, people, leave the man to be dead, and do not screw up his legacy any more than you already have. You are scum, and you deserve whatever karma comes your way. Again, my opinion. If you don't like it, come at me. All yours, sir.
Yeah, remember that the opinions expressed by Mr. Quinn are his own opinions and not a reflection. Sorry, I had to do it.
Hey, no, I agree, mate. I'm fully with you on that. If they've got a problem, come and speak to me. They can hear it from my own lips.
To be honest, I don't really have too much of a final word. I feel that we've covered most of what I wanted to in the stories today. I will let people know what is going on the next couple of days. Tomorrow, Saturday, I will be having should I say, somebody who believes in anarcho-capitalism. I am also trying to get anarcho-communist as well for the Saturday next, but we shall see. It's proving more difficult. But that should be going on tomorrow at 8 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, so very, very similar to what we're doing. It's not a debate. It is an interview. I want to find out what the actual reasonings are that this person has decided to go down that route and the reasons behind his thinking or their thinking, and so on and so forth. As long as B can get her finger out and actually decide what stories are going in for Sunday, we should, as long as I don't die or have something that I need to do again, should be doing a B Blows Your Sunday on Sunday. And that should be around about 7 or 8, depending on what time B is free. And then we have Monday. Monday's going to be interesting, which is again going to be around about 7 or 8. It should be about 7. Me, Jensen Quinn, and Crumple Point. And depending if other people are watching, if they would like to get involved, then just send me a message. We are going to be talking about the knife crime in London, specifically London, because that's where most of the statistics are for at this moment in time, but generally all over the UK is going up, and why we think that is, and going into detail on that, and talking about Tommy Robinson and what's going on with the cases and everything else like that. So with that being said, I will leave everything there. That will be about 7, 8 o'clock. Most of these will be done. I am going to be moving to more of a weekend type of slotting to try and do at least something once a week and try and do everything towards the weekend. I may be able to get some more videos out and things like that. I don't know. It depends on my workload at college, as it's getting a little bit heavier and harder to get on at this moment in time. But all going well so far. I have passed my 2 first modules, so doing okay. So yeah, I'm going to try and do more things for the weekend, and hopefully we'll be all right on that aspect. But with that being said, guys, thank you very much for taking the time to watch this live stream. Thank you very much for respecting our opinions and us respecting yours. Come back again, and hopefully we will see you again real soon.